This is the ABQ Business Podcast with your host, Jason Rigby. Each week we'll interview visionary business leaders to inspire the creative power and spirit that's in every entrepreneur. Discussing strengths, weaknesses, strategies, systems, and the problems we can all solve together for a new future for local small business.
What is up, everyone? This is the ABQ Business Podcast with your host, Jason Rigby. I'm super excited about this show today. We're going to kind of get into a different topic, and I think it's one that may be either mislabeled or not talked much about. And I have an expert in that, and Zane Landin. Welcome to the show, Zane.
Thank you so much for having me, Jason. It's great to be here.
Yes, and I want to kind of go right into. I love your I love your bio on LinkedIn. It says Zane Landin, aspiring storyteller and public relations Imagineer. When you decided to use the word Imagineer, what were you thinking when you said this is the title that I want to go by?
So, okay, every one of us has like a Disney memory, and I have a lot of them because I went to Disneyland a lot as a kid, and I live in California, so I was able to go there kind of a lot. And one time I saw the word Imagineer, I had no idea what that meant. I asked what it meant, and then they said it had to do with those are the Disney engineers, and I was like, that is really cool. That is so innovative. I love the title. And then so I've always wanted to use it, but it always applied to engineers. So I was like, I'm going to be a storytelling Imagineer because we're engineering the story for people. And that's how I pictured it when I came up with it. And I was told that if you're like in a position, or even if you're not, your LinkedIn title, a lot of people use their jobs. I was actually told to just try something unique because that's like one of the first things they're going to see. And most recruiters are going to look at your LinkedIn for just a couple of seconds, kind of like how a resume works. So you have to definitely look at ways to stand out. And so I think if you have a job, I think it's actually fine if you have a title that has your job because you're not really looking for anything. But if you don't, I think you should try something to stand out.
Now, whenever you would go to, because I know we all love Disneyland, so I want to talk about that a little bit. So, whenever you would go to Disneyland, and you said you've been a ton of times when you were a kid. I mean, you live in California. How far did you live from Disneyland?
Yep, still live at the same place, and it's still probably like an hour and a half. So not probably an hour and 15 minutes actually, not super far.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Now, have you, when you went to Disney, how were they with mental illness and disabilities? Did you see that aspect of them as a corporation?
So the thing is with that, I wasn't really 100% aware when I went to Disneyland. I haven't gone in like a very long time, so I was still a kid, which we can talk about, like the cultural implications of having a disability as in the context of it. A lot of people don't know about it. So as a kid, I didn't really know about it because we don't really have, conversations around this kind of stuff till you're kind of older, which I hope kind of changes. But I, I really did not see many people with disabilities, but that's the thing. I don't know because they could have an invisible disability. And for people who don't know like what that is, that could be learning disability, the ones you can't see. And so there could actually be a lot of people there with disabilities, but I personally don't know how accommodating Disney was or wasn't. I think I saw someone in a wheelchair from time to time, but not very many. And maybe there's like a certain feeling for people with disabilities. Maybe they don't like theme parks. Maybe theme parks aren't very accommodating or inclusive. So I don't
Right.
know that though, so don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure, but that could be something to, think about when it comes to theme parks.
Yeah, and Zane, why do you feel like your age group is doesn't bring this out and it's not fully aware? Is it because of the Instagram and having to look so perfect? And why is and I know we could say all different age groups. I'm 47, so I could say millennials or Gen X, my generation. But why is there this stigma with mental illness and disabilities?
Well, because for one, I think it's always existed, even on extreme levels when it from like a long time ago, and I think we're starting to break the stigma a bit. We're starting to see disability advocates and just people with disabilities kind of resurface into society and be integrated in society. Currently on TikTok, the deaf content creator or deaf TikTok hashtag is like booming right now. So we are seeing a really interesting shift with people with disabilities and like how they are on social media and how they present themselves, which I think is great because you know, people can actually see what it means to have a disability, and then people can actually see it's not as different or not as hard as people assume, and that could be kind of problematic as well when you assume a person with a disability is suffering. That's why we you shouldn't tend to say this person is suffering from this disability. You just say this person has this disability, because it's not really your place to determine if they're suffering or not. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. No. 100%. And do you think it's the work that's been done slowly? So now this TikTok generation, which is it's getting older. TikTok is getting a little bit older, but it's still pretty young. Is that why they're it's becoming more socially acceptable?
Wow, I really don't know. One can hope. I personally don't know if it has to do with them being younger, or if it is just like a really cool platform that a lot of people are on. Maybe the platform is appears to be inclusive for people with disabilities. I'm not 100% sure, but it's definitely worth exploring, and I'm excited to like research more about TikTok, because I'm actually on a research team looking at deaf content creators on TikTok, because people are their first assumption of videos are not going to think it's someone who's deaf. Unfortunately, that's like an unfortunate standard. So I'm happy that these deaf content creators are kind of breaking that.
No, I love that. Yeah, and it just shows that I think it puts the human side, because there's always this fear that comes along with it. So people would just as soon push it aside and ignore it. So this kind of social media is this opportunity to be able to, in a good way, bring things to light and allow to see the day to day life.
Yeah, I know that there's a, I don't want to say stigma, but there is a huge negativity towards social media, especially with a lot of the older generation. A lot of them kind of reluctant, but what the pandemic has definitely proved that to drive storytelling and brand management, online digital presence is absolutely essential. And how are we going to experience the world without social media and without news? And we have to be mindful of that news and social media, because it doesn't paint the most accurate picture. That's why we have to, use an analytical and critical eye when we look at social media. But I think it can really bring a perspective that we don't see. Like, I personally don't know that many people with disabilities. I know the ones I've worked with, because we're all part of like a cohort of people who work with disability advocacy, but I personally don't know that many. And so when I see all these, influencers on TikTok and Instagram, it kind of like exposes you to a whole new world that you never experienced. So I think people should give more credit to social media, especially with how things are nowadays with the pandemic. It's really connecting people.
Yes, I think so too, especially with, I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and they just said that we're going to have 2 weeks of pretty severe lockdown to try to bring everything under control. So, if you're staying at home or in your home, then social media is your outlet to be able to communicate.
Yeah, it really is. And I feel like it's the modern way to communicate. People still have group chats, people still text, but it's harder to connect with a broader audience without social media, because we can't just kind of go out and interact with people. So we kind of thrive on that right now. So I can imagine if you don't have social media, I imagine it can be kind of lonely, but that's my experience, and that's probably what I would feel if I didn't have social media. And I'm not saying with social media like you have this life where you're connecting with so many people. No, not really. But I think you're still getting a bit of humanity when you look at social media. I know that sounds so weird, because like a lot of people say that's not what social media is, but I think right now it kind of is.
Yeah, and I know you wrote a blog and it was published on how you can make your social media more inclusive. What were some of the things that you were writing and that you were trying to get? And I encourage people to that they can look it up. But what were some of the things that you're trying to for someone to, if you were going to educate them to see on exactly how social media could be more inclusive?
Yeah. Okay. So I have been involved in disability advocacy just for like 2 or 3 years now. I got involved in Best Buddies in high school, but I wasn't super interested in the advocacy part. I just love the club. And if people don't know what Best Buddies is, it's like it's a club like on, I think they have some on colleges, but mostly high schools, where they try and break the wall between people with disabilities and without. Because K through 12 system, people with disabilities are often very segregated in the classroom, and you know that because there's the special ed classroom or the special needs class, and they're not fully interacting or integrating with others, and that actually can have a lot of damaging effects. But aside that, for social media, I think people need to understand that you know social media is not entirely inclusive, and you kind of have to do your part, because people who are blind or people who are deaf, it's very hard for them to engage with pictures or video content without some accommodation or support. What I mean by that is It depends on what tools you use, but your phone actually has a screen reader. For people who are blind, when they tap something, it'll read what it says. And so when you're going through Instagram with a screen reader and you click on an image, if you don't use a certain tool, it's not going to say anything. So if I use that tool and I touch the image on Instagram, it'll just say like image posted, or it'll make. Sometimes I think it assumes what the image has, like two people standing. I think it does that. I don't think so actually. I think it just says like image posted by this account. So it's just very difficult to interact with the account if you're blind and you're using the screen reader. So you use certain tools like alternative text, which it's actually really easy to find on social media. Before you like post on Instagram, you go to the bottom to advanced settings, go to the bottom again, add alt text, and you just add it. You just type what the picture means. So if it's two people standing next to each other, you don't have to go into detail like every single thing going on, but you could just say two people standing next to each other, wearing a blue and purple shirt outside in like a green backyard. That not necessarily like tells the whole story, but it paints almost a somewhat accurate picture of what the post is trying to represent. And you don't have to worry about the text because they'll be able to read the text if they click on the text. So whatever's in the text, they'll be able to read or hear. But in the actual posting itself, like if you have a very complicated flyer, I mean, I don't think complicated flyers are even really good for social media. A lot of the times I see they don't really do well
Right.
posting wise. But if you're gonna have a complicated flyer, you can't put all of it in alternative text, then you just have to put the most important stuff. But I mean, when it comes to design, anyways, you want to make sure that your kind of flyers are really straight to the point. That's kind of how it works because our brains move so fast, and we're going through content. So what is it, like 2 billion content? I think we go through like millions of content a day, and it's just so quick, and we don't even consume that as content. We don't think of it as content. We're just scrolling through stuff, but our brain is processing all of it, and so it doesn't want to grapple with that complicated mess because it kind of can look like that sometimes. So like I think simpler is better when it comes to design and accessibility.
Yeah, and what do you think as far as companies? How could they be more inclusive?
I think with the social media, making sure that's inclusive, making sure that your stories, if you have videos, making sure that it has subtext, audio text, so that if someone is saying something in the video, they can actually read what it's saying if they're deaf or hard of hearing, and so stuff like that. Making sure your designs are very have a lot of contrast. From a design perspective, that's already not the best when you have a when you have a flyer that the colors are so similar.
Right.
That could be an issue already from a design perspective. That's not really good design, but um, people who are colorblind, that can be a huge issue for them too. So just trying to these are like simple things though, and this is like just ways to make your marketing a lot better anyways. So there's like a quote that says I don't remember exactly, but it said like if you pave the way for people with disabilities, you pave the way for all, because essentially if you create a world where it's inclusive to people with disabilities, people who don't have disabilities or able-bodied people can follow along because they're already doing fine. They don't need that extra support. And so it actually will make a better world for them anyways, because it will probably be a lot better with roads, construction, social media. And so when you implement these ideas, like the social media ideas, it's probably gonna make your marketing just a lot better anyways. And you never know who you're gonna influence. If most companies or most accounts aren't doing it, and someone who maybe is blind is actually interacting with your content, and maybe they even reach out and say, as like, this is so great, you're really like making social media a thing for me, and I'm really appreciating it. That kind of stuff is really cool. I think that could be amazing.
No, I agree 100%. And you know what's exciting to me is to see this being brought into light more. I mean, you said you've been working on this for 2 or 3 years, but even 3 years ago, how was it compared to now?
Wow, I don't know, because I wasn't super involved in it before, so it's hard to gauge, but a lot of this stuff does exist, and I think it has existed for a long time now. Like social media accessibility, I don't think that's existed for a very long time, but I think that stuff does exist. Even websites, making websites accessible, which I cannot get into because I really don't know much about websites, but I know
Right.
that when you're working with a computer scientist or a coder, there are ways that you can create an inclusive website. And there are actually, websites that even have just you can literally just type in like website accessibility checker, and it will tell you exactly what that website needs. I did that for one website, and it sent me like a was it like 30-40 page report on what needs to be changed, but it shows you like what the things that they are doing already. So it's not just saying here's 40 pages of stuff you're doing wrong. No, I'm sure the report's going to be that long anyways, but it's going to tell you exactly what's right and what's wrong. And I think that's a great guide for someone who has no idea about website accessibility too. So these tools exist even on Word and PowerPoint. There's accessibility checker, making sure that your Word documents or your PowerPoints are accessible. So the platforms and like the tools exist, just a lot of people don't know about them.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, and I've heard somebody was talking to me a couple weeks ago that you can actually download a program, a WordPress. You know, if you have a WordPress site, which most people do, you can download a program and it will convert. And there's a lot of different things that you do, and then it leaves a little button on the home page, and then they can click on that, and then it translates and does different formats. So I know there are programs that are out there. Let's take a little shift of focus, and I want to get into your magazine
Mhm.
and make sure that. So you've created a magazine. What is the name of the magazine?
Yeah, it's called Positive Vibes magazine.
And what is the main focus of the magazine? What are you imagining that this magazine to be?
Um, Let me tell the story actually, so it makes a lot more sense and the context is there. So spring of 2020, we all know what happened in spring, but I was taking copy editing for my major. So I'm a communication major, emphasis in public relations, and I had to take copy editing. During the class, we were hit by the pandemic, and so the class changed because it went virtual. But the we were already gonna do this project, but if the pandemic didn't happen, I don't think I would have pursued it. So our final project was we had to create a what it's like a publication. We had to create our own publication. In a way, it was kind of like creating a publication. It really was just think of a platform you would like to work for, that you would like to write for, and like a magazine or a newspaper, something like that. And you had to like make a title, and you had to do like a mission statement, and you had to like do a little target audience on who you were trying to target. And so I really just thought about magazine because I always love how flashy they are. I always love just the design of them and just how interesting magazines are and how they're kind of nichey. Not like a newspaper that's like for a lot of people. So I decided for the assignment to do, well, at first actually I wanted to do like a magazine on scary stories, occult studies, and what is it like what's it called?
Like esoteric type?
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, so that didn't happen because the assignment kind of said that you needed to be completely nonfiction, and so I thought with occult and the supernatural stuff going on, because I always thought that stuff so interesting, and it'd be cool to report on people's experiences. It's not very. I'm not saying it's nonfiction. I think it is nonfiction, but some people won't think it's nonfiction at all, and so it was kind of subjective. So then I just thought I kind of did a 180, and I thought, oh, it'd be really interesting if there was a platform for positivity. And I know that there's a bunch. There's a lot of platforms for positivity, but I wanted one where the focus was on positivity, mental health, and also just giving individuals a platform that really deserve it and don't really get the attention they need from the traditional news sources or the traditional magazines. You know what I mean? Like the people who are on the ground actually doing really beautiful work for their communities or for other people or for themselves. So that was it. And then so I did the portfolio. I sent it to my friend Michelle Allende. She's like a grammar wizard. So I sent it to her and I'm like, could you check it over, see if it's interesting? At the time when I drafted the proposal, in my mind I'm thinking, this is kind of interesting. It'd be cool if it existed. I don't know. So then I texted her. She said it looked good. The assignment was fine. And so she texted me and I asked her, I was like, do you think that this is something that I should consider pursuing? You know what I mean? And so she actually thought it was a good idea and that it was different. And so literally we started from there, which was started in April, kind of did some planning. Then we really, really launched the Instagram account in late May. So we really didn't start till late May, like the first week in June, basically. And so, yeah, we just started in May and then we've been functioning since and it's just been growing. We started off with two little interviews. I mean, sorry, two little articles, and then we had one person reach out, which was really exciting. Then we had another person reach out, and now we have like 30 people reaching out. It's so interesting. It's so exciting. And I've never realized how things like this are valuable to people. Like, people want media coverage. They want their message out there, and that's what we're doing. And so I love how most people just kind of say yes. There's some people that have said no, but the majority of people are usually honored, and it's so exciting because like I really want to interview some of them, and because their stories are so powerful, and they're willing to do it.
So, like when you're doing interviews, because now is the theme of the magazine, is it mental disabilities? What is the theme of the magazine? Why use the word positive vibes?
I don't know. I really resonate with the word positive vibes, and I've actually never seen anywhere with a platform or a magazine or something that was like Positive Vibes magazine or Positive Vibes space. So I thought that was really interesting. I don't even know if I took too much time on the title, but I really like the title and I really think it's interesting because in a way, even though it's a generic title, it's kind of unique for a magazine because even though we everyone here is Positive Vibes, I've never heard of like a like a magazine doing that. So
Right.
I'm happy no one's taken it. I saw a Positive Vibes magazine on Facebook that was like active like 3 years ago, and they haven't posted since. So I was like, oh, I think we're okay then.
Yeah, that's something that is very important to go do a little bit of Google research and social media research before you choose a name. I've had so many people open up businesses and then have issues with names, not realizing that there's two or three other companies that have the same exact name, and then there can be issues with that. Now, when you're looking at these stories in the magazine, what are some of the things that you're wanting to highlight, and what are some of these stories?
Well, so when it comes to these stories, we want someone who is evoking positive and transformational change. That can mean a lot of things. And that's the thing. That's the point. We want to hear what your perspective is, and we want to hear why your message is worth sharing. And we're not on the moral high ground determining that this message is better, this message is what people want to hear. No, no, no. I want to know what you think your message is and what do you preach. And so usually when people send us their bio, I look and I'm like, this is good. I mean, this is fine. I mean, I've never really experienced anyone who we didn't want to share because
Right.
everyone has something to share. And I think that was the point, is that everyone is worth sharing and everyone has a powerful message. We've interviewed someone who had 100,000 followers. We interviewed someone who didn't have Instagram or any social media because that's their story. And just because you're not famous on Instagram, and everyone knows that, everyone has a powerful story, especially a lot of the times people who aren't even on social media have a powerful story. They're just so humble. They don't have to share it. They don't want to share it, maybe. So that's what we're trying to create.
Yeah, so that's something that's so interesting is that you were able to recognize that and see, somebody that may not be specifically on, because there so many times we judge people by their social media standards. We're looking at, like you said, oh, they have 100,000 followers, or they have 50,000 followers, whatever, and then we judge their importance based off of this app or this social media and not understanding the real work that is being done in their daily lives and helping others.
Yeah, and I definitely get a bit carried away or diluted when it comes to followers. I'm like, oh, that person is obviously very important, but you never know what their journey was or how they got the followers or if they're real. When you look at the content and you see, even with the amount of likes, that's the thing too. Even today we posted something that only got like 30 likes, and that's not a lot. But that's the thing with digital marketing and all this stuff. It's like it's definitely trial and error. I mean, definitely our engagements low this week than it's been in a while, but one of our best posts was this week of all time with over like 300 likes. So you never know like what can happen with digital marketing, what people are gravitating towards and what people aren't. So that's also very difficult to find the niche and find out what people really like because like I said, I would post stuff, we would get 100 likes, and then sometimes I post something, didn't get much, and then you post something, then it gets 300. And you're like, why? so now that so now we're seeing an escalation of up and downs from postings. I'm getting more of a clear direction on what people really like when it comes to our social media, which is really exciting because now we can determine direction better. So, and also that's the thing, we're so new, and so we're trying to figure things out. We don't know like 100% what we're doing all the time. it's all about trial and error. And I think that's the fun of it. And I think people appreciate that because we're not perfect, and we don't expect to be. We definitely don't expect other people to be, because we know that people aren't perfect and life isn't perfect. And it kind of a bit going against the title, but it's not. That's the thing. So I don't even believe you need to be positive all the time. I think it's something that should be in the back of your head. It should be your philosophy. But we're here to also recognize that life isn't sunshine and unicorns. We always say that, because also the magazine is a podcast. We have a podcast section because for people who hate reading, which is a lot, we wanted to have a platform for people to listen. So done like 8 interviews. We have a couple scheduled, and so well, we've done like 5 episodes that we haven't released yet because we only try and do like content once a week, like a podcast or an article. But now with like 6 episodes and 12 drafts of articles, we kind of maybe need to do 2 postings a week on our actual content, which is great. Um, but yeah.
So like it's so funny how the algorithms work. I mean, on a personal basis, my TikTok account, my highest one is me unboxing a pair of Jordans that I got, and I just did it really quick. I didn't think anything of it, and then I have others where I'm sharing, like philosophical things that I'm realizing in my life, or maybe some business tips, Instagram tips, whatever it may be, and TikTok, tips and all that, and those don't do as well. And it's so you just I think you just never really know. I think that's why it's important just to produce great content and then just allow it to go out there, and then allow the people to decide.
Yeah, I mean that guy that was on the skateboard drinking the what was it that what's it?
Yes, yeah, ocean spray, cranberry juice, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who in the world was gonna expect that to go viral? Like, see, yeah, like I don't know, like I don't like. It's hard to determine what's gonna go viral, so you have to be on your toes like all the time, but you also can't really anticipate some of this stuff. So that's where the fun comes from, because you definitely can try new things, and there's not like a one answer fits all. So it's not like you go into a marketing job, it's like, oh, this works, we need to do this. It's more like we don't know what works, and you got this creativity. And I think that's what's fun about PR and marketing is it's kind of all up to you and or your team or the organization, but there's not one size fits all, and I think that's fun.
Yeah, what are some of the things that you look at as far as creativity goes, and then holding to your brand on your magazine? Do you have certain filters that you use, or I'm not talking like Instagram filters. I'm talking like looking at and saying we want to make sure that our brand is consistent in this format. Or before you post, is there anything that goes through your guys' minds to understand specifically, especially for your guys' age group? Because a lot of times I'll have business leaders in their 40, 50 years old, and they want to get involved in social media, but they have like no idea.
Yeah, I think looking at the organization, what it stands for, and what you think your audience will appreciate, and also what your audience is going to value. I think sometimes postings do low or don't do well because your heart might not be in it. And I think people can see that. I think maybe people can see that you're just posting for the sake of posting. So we post every day, and maybe we shouldn't, because some postings don't do as well, and some postings I just want to get out because I want to get a posting out. But when it comes to value now, I don't think that's the smartest decision, because you always want to give your audience value or valuable tips. And we've definitely tried that. I mean, for the longest time, we've held like similar campaigns like Dessert Saturday. Then on Sunday, we do a posting on something philosophical and something to drive conversations and thought. So we did a post on letting it go, like how to let go of your anger, stuff like that. Let's see, I'm looking right now. We did a whole history of the Dreamcatcher, which people don't know about. And people like we always see them and how Americanized a lot of them are, but we don't know the history that the Native Americans have taught. And so stuff like that is very interesting. And what else have we? We did a history of fairies. It's like the weirdest stuff,
Oh,
but
but no, I love that though. That's super cool. I
yeah,
think
and
that's
then
awesome.
people don't know because we did a history of unicorns, and people don't know that they were first witnessed, or not witnessed, they were first recorded in like the Mesopotamian era. So it's not like this a unicorn was just made recently and it's only like for girls. No, no, no. This is like a tale that people saw a long time ago, and this history is worth exploring. We did a whole even history of the star seed, which that is like some of the that's like the most interesting thing I've ever heard. it's like this thing that we're reincarnations of the universe. It's really interesting.
No,
But stuff
no,
like that.
yeah, you're fine. You could talk about this. I have a higher density living podcast, another podcast, and it's a spiritual podcast, and we talk about that all the time. I just did, and I'll be posting it. I'm going to be having it on this show. I just did a past lives reading, and I had never done one before, and it was so interesting, and it was accurate. It was like very accurate. The cards that I picked were things that I could relate with or see or know, and things that I have questioned in things that I've seen in my life and patterns, where it came out and through this. So,
Mhm.
so on the Starseed side, I want because I want to talk about this. I think this is interesting. Did you find, because it's kind of like in vogue to people that are spiritual or yogis or whatever. They'll put that on there, and you have Palladians and all this stuff. Um, did you find it? Did you get into a community with that and kind of just did some research on it, or how did you go in that? Like, how did you go in that direction? Because I love that you guys are picking these amazing topics.
Yeah, so I really don't remember how we got into the spiritual stuff. I really don't remember, but we somehow just ease into it. And I don't know, I really don't remember how or why. I mean, I know why. I mean, because it's very interesting. And yet again, it's very open minded. And so it makes you more open minded to hear this stuff. And what we're saying is you can believe what you want, power to you, and whatever you believe. That's the point. You can take our messages to the heart and you determine what it is. We can't empower you, you have to empower yourself. So we can give you the message, but you have to empower yourself with that message. And so whatever works for you, we just want to educate you all on what this stuff is. Maybe you'll find it very interesting. So we even did a recently we did a tarot card reading. I
Nice.
learned about starseed and tarot. I mean, I knew about tarot because my sister, my cousin, and my friend do it, but I didn't know about starseed. My friend who does tarot showed me a little book he had about starseed, and I was like, wow, what the heck is this? And he told me about it. I thought that's really interesting. But that was a long time ago. That was like probably like 6, 7 months ago. But when I was doing the magazine, I was thinking of postings for the Sunday thing. I was like, ooh, a starseed post could actually be really interesting because a lot of people don't know what that is. And it's a very abstract idea. And I think it's really cool.
Now, is that what you're looking at for the magazine? I mean, not just to have a positive vibe and be inclusive, but are you looking at kind of taking these abstract or these thought processes that, or not, I wouldn't say thought processes, but maybe like whether it's unicorns or fairies or star seeds and just kind of be like, I've heard of this, but I don't really know. And then you're just kind of putting a light on it and then putting that knowledge out there.
Yes, so part of the brand too, our brand's a lot of stuff. But we you know that there's a saying that ignorance is bliss. Well, I don't know. I think to a certain degree, ignorance can be bliss, but what I'm thinking is there's definitely a lot of knowledge that can make your life a lot better. So I don't know how bliss ignorance is, to be honest. So that's what I'm thinking that, if you want to be a positive person, it's not even just about being positive, it's having peace of mind, being a wise person, making good decisions. You really need to know a lot about the world. If you don't know about the world, I don't know how you can have a good peace of mind. I think that people can be relaxed or have peace of mind and not know a lot, but to be like a wise person, spiritual person, or even a positive person, you have to know that sometimes things happen and the world functions a certain way. And I think without knowing, there's a lot of growth that can happen there if you don't know how the world really works. And I'm not saying I'm this huge expert. It relates to me too. I'll be totally honest. The magazine or the platform itself has helped me tons. I will say that it's helped me, find joy. It's helped me determine social media. It's helped me with public relations. It's helped everything for me. It's helped my career. I'm gaining all these connections of people I interview. Some are even in my field of PR, and so it's so exciting to connect with people for all these different reasons. And some of them are meant to be some of the connections I made. It's really interesting.
No, I think that's awesome. I found probably producing content, whether I do this podcast or writing or whatever it is, that I always learn more, than because I believe all of us should have this philosophy of that each of us can learn, teach, and teach, learn each other, and so it's really beautiful in the way that when you begin to delve into these subjects and then how much you learn, like you said, and then the connections that you make and the networking that goes from that with like minded people.
Yeah. And it's interesting what brings people together, because the platform can be for anyone. Well, I'm not making the assumption. I'm just saying we try to make our platform open to anyone. And I know before I said I like magazines because they're niche, but we also kind of want to go against that and say this platform is supposed to represent positive vibes, and how can that be a niche? Like we don't want to go
Mm.
into a niche because that's not positivity. So even though we go into spirituality, we go into other stuff. Like recently, we talked to a music therapist. That was a lot of fun. And yet again, it's still very interesting what does well. I mean, the Instagram posting didn't do as well as we wanted to, but for some reason, the YouTube video got like 70 views. I mean, 70 views isn't too much, but when it comes to a podcast, for us, and since we just developed the podcast like 2 months ago, 70 views is great, especially since we didn't really advertise the YouTube. We just put in our story. Here's the YouTube video. I don't think a lot of people from the Instagram went, so it's like people are seeing it. I think it had like 7,000 impressions, which means that they saw the thumbnail, they just didn't go into it. But I think that's great. Your reach is getting 7,000, and you probably have more experience. I don't know if that's a lot, but for us, that's to me that's great because we have podcasts where it does really well on Anchor or like the podcast platform, like 60, 70 views. Then YouTube channel has 10 views. I'm like, this is so weird how that works.
Yeah, no, and I think a lot of it has to do with and I want to get too much into digital marketing, but especially YouTube, everything is keyword SEO related because
Yeah.
Google's number one for search and YouTube's number two now for search. So people are searching specific things in YouTube. So having and you said it was a musician that does therapy through music.
No, I don't know if they're a musician per se. I'm pretty sure they are, but their main focus was music therapy. They actually founded the music therapy department at Berkeley College. They've been president of like the International Music Therapy Association, which is crazy because when I reached out to her, I was like, it'd be cool if we had a podcast where we talk to someone who has done music therapy. And so I typed it in. There was like a bunch of people, and I picked her, and I didn't know that she was so important. I just picked someone I thought would be really interesting. And since she was a professor, I wanted to get like an academic side to it because there was the
Right.
research that she's done. But gosh, to know that she's been president of international associations and founded a whole department at a college was so cool. It was such a fun interview. And so that was my point in saying we're inclusive. We'll interview anything. We'll talk about music therapy. We'll talk to a chef. We'll talk to a psychic. Whatever you think that, whatever you think you do serves purpose for people, and if we think it does too, and of course, like I said, 100% it's usually a match because everyone has something to give. Let's do it. Let's do the interview, and then most of the time, it's really great. I'm
Yeah, I
not saying
just
like I'm not saying our podcasts are like so amazing. No, I'm saying that it's great for me. I connect with these people, and the messages are so strong for me, and I hope other people resonate with them.
No, I love that. I just did a podcast earlier with the gentleman that had a very cool story. He had was in one of those boot camps that they used to have like 10 or 15 years ago, where you take troubled kids to, and then they try to straighten them out.
What was it again? You said a farm.
No, it was like a boot camp. They called them boot camps. But in that process, he experienced severe child abuse, rape, torture. He was kidnapped, and then he became this successful entrepreneur through that all, and had drug abuse issues, and was in prison. And so I learned so much from that episode. And it was so positive that you could have somebody that had experienced so much trauma and then have turned their life. Had he was homeless in LA, and was running his business out of his an old van that he was sleeping in, and it was just an amazing story of triumph, and that ability for even to be in their thought process, to be positive and continue to hustle and work and work, and then finally you see them, and then becoming self-aware, and seeing this process of him growing as a human. And I love your eclectic. I think it's so neat and very nichey, and I know your magazine's going to do really well just off of you just picking these eclectic and abstract. I mean, that thought process alone, that's really cool that you guys are doing that.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. There's always books and stuff like top 10 qualities of a successful person. I don't really read a lot of those books. I'm going to start definitely because I'm about to graduate soon. I want to learn more about professionalism and stuff like that. But When it comes to a lot of, I mean, it depends, but a lot of successful people I know, they're usually very positive, and I think there's something to say about that. That I don't think that if you're positive, you're going to be successful, or if you're not positive, you're not going to be successful. I'm just saying a lot of people that I've met have a very positive mindset, and I think a lot of successful people have that kind of mindset because they know not everything can go well all the time.
Right.
And I think that if you kind of tell yourself that, you'll probably set yourself up for success, not total success, but when you fail, you're not surprised by it, or you're like, oh, it's just another journey I have to go through, or I need to be fast in like my approach or my strategy and trying to fix it or change it. But if you always believe that things need to be perfect, it's going to be really overwhelming when they're not.
Oh yeah, and I think that's something that when you look at somebody that's successful, or whatever success looks like, and I think that's relative. We always look at it as, like you had said earlier. Unfortunately, we look at it as like Instagram likes, or how many followers you have, or if you have a Bugatti or a big mansion or something. But when I think of examples like Gandhi or Mother Teresa, or concentration camp survivors, that's success in and of itself. I mean, Mother Teresa never had a social media account, and she changed the world. So helping the she helped disabled people in India, in orphanages and stuff like that. And so and just giving of her time and serving. So seeing people that have that grit, I guess would be the right word that you would use, from all the whether they've experienced trauma or whether they've gone through a lot of suffering. It's so crazy to me how positive those people are.
Yeah, and I think the reason why they are, and yeah, it's funny you use the word grit. I actually was just asking about the word grit because someone said it and I hadn't heard of it, and I'm like, "What is grit?" And they said like resiliency, and it's funny you say it. It's like that thing where you hear something and then you hear it all the time after, but it
Yeah,
hits you.
yeah. There's a book by I think she's a college professor, and it went to New York Times bestseller a few years back. It's called Grit. I think it was like Angela Duckworth, or don't quote me on the author, but she had wrote a book just on grit, and you perfectly nailed it with resilience, because that's what it is.
Yeah, and so, but yeah, what I was gonna say though is I feel like the reason why these people have such hard stories are usually the most positive is because they know what it's like to be down in the dumps, and they know where they are in their life right now is a lot better than what it was. And I think that's something to be super grateful for.
Yeah, I agree. What is the future of Positive Vibes magazine? What are you guys excited about for what's going to be happening?
We're super excited about the future content coming out. We're getting some more articles out there because for a while now we've just been kind of releasing features and interviews, but we got some articles coming out. One on the nonviolence movement, which is not highlighted enough. We have one on art therapy and positivity, and we're doing one on multicultural positivity, which is very interesting because there probably are articles out there. I just haven't seen them, but I would love to like investigate what positivity means to different cultures and how they view it. And so that's something we're kind of exploring. So we're excited for that. We're excited for the features that we're doing with some of the amazing people we've talked to. There's something super, super exciting that's going to happen very soon. I can't say because it's not 100% sure yet, but it's super exciting. It has to do with
No,
New York. It has to do with the New York Times. I'll just say that.
oh, wow, that's awesome. And I think you can I think you guys, if you keep this up the way that your thought process is with this. Now, is there a couple of you guys, like a team that thinks this, or are you kind of, are you guys all like doing this together, or are you kind of the leader of this?
Yeah, I'm the leader. I am like the CEO, CMO, but I don't do the writing. I've written some articles. Some of them I have that have my name on them that I did, but now I don't. So how it works is my friend is the editor in chief, the one who started it kind of with me. So she kind of reviews the articles, make sure they're grammatically correct. So every time we have an article done, we send it to her. She sends it to me. Everything looks good. We'll post it like whenever we do. And so, but the reason why we were kind of on pause for the first time because like there are people who have podcasts and magazines who getting kind of content like weekly or they're doing like episodes so quick. And I'm like, how did they do that? But I'm thinking it's because my friend and I took a pause. It was like, we'll post content on social media, but we'll stop with the writing because we don't have a lot of articles and we don't know where to go. And so I thought it would be cool if we had interns. especially since a lot of people lost their internships. So we're like, why don't we do an internship where people can like diversify their portfolio, their writing portfolio, and in a way can kind of work on whatever they want, because we don't we don't really have a direction except for writing. We just for sure needed writing, but for social media direction, for all this stuff, that was totally up in the air for what people wanted to do. So we have had a total of like 16 people that have helped, but right now we just have like 8 or 9, 10 active. So that's it, and we have like 2 more coming on. So it's just really exciting. And unfortunately, we can't pay them. I would love to pay for their services, but they know that's not paid. And I know some people have an issue with unpaid internships. Say what you want about unpaid internships. Don't tell people to get rid of them. I mean, you can ask them to consider doing paid internships, but don't tell them to get rid of unpaid, because that's someone's opportunity there. That could be someone's opportunity to get in the door. And it's unfortunate it's not paid, but it's an opportunity. Like, I'm 100% for sure. I love unpaid internships. I love paid internships. But all the ones I've had are unpaid. And if they do paid internships, maybe there's going to be way less internships. I just want all opportunity. I want opportunity to be there for so many people all the time. So I don't think a lot of companies even have the luxury to pay people. You know what I mean? So I know that was a trend on LinkedIn, that there's a lot of content creators saying, "Oh, stop with the unpaid internships." And I'm like, I don't know if we should do that, because that's a lot of opportunities for people.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think I have 2 interns, and it's so interesting that a lot of businesses don't think of that. Even brick and mortar businesses, you have an opportunity. You could have an intern, whether you pay them or not. You could reach out if you have a college near you. You could reach out to a college near you and get social media interns. I mean, to help you out with your social media. A lot of businesses don't take advantage of that. And when I went and talked to the digital marketing professor, and he's like, we have a lot of people looking for interns, but there's not a lot of companies out there that are willing to do it.
Yeah, and I don't know why. And I'm not gonna. And a lot of people always think, internships, they're just taking advantage of young students who want an opportunity. They're just kind of exploiting them. And I bet you there are some companies that definitely do that. But the reason what we do is we don't expect much from our interns, except like almost the bare minimum of what we're asking them. So we kind of ask that they try and produce an article almost once a month. And I mean, we have some interns that like crank out content. Like, we have an intern right now that's done like 3 articles in like 2 3 weeks, which is amazing. And so I'm really happy that we have people who are so dedicated and love the message that much. But then we have some interns that can only do so much time. Maybe can only do even 2 3 hours a week. And I know that's not a lot. I know some businesses don't want to hire if they're only gonna contribute 2 3 hours. But I thought we don't really need someone to contribute 20 30 hours a week anyways. So it's not a problem if you can only commit to 2 3 hours a week. As long as you're contributing to something and helping us out, we're super grateful. And I think that's a lot of times why there are some people that gravitate towards internships like that, especially ones that are volunteer, because they're usually very flexible. And also, I really love my team. I mean, we only communicate on like a Slack, and we do like once a week we'll do like a team meeting, and I have it where just pop in. I'll have the Zoom open for 4 hours and just pop in whenever you want. So it's like very flexible. There's not a lot of like me like checking on them a lot. I check on them just once a week just to see how they're doing, if they need any support, if they want to work on something else. A lot of it is like they don't have to be a self starter, but they definitely have to think about what they want to do. Because usually when I talk to them and I'm like, "What do you want to work on?" Because I have my ideas, but I want to hear what you want to do, because I want to make sure that you're working on what you want to. So when you finish this and when you graduate, or whatever it is that your next step is, I want to make sure that you actually have the physical work that you can show your employer. Because a lot of our students are college students, but it's also exciting that we have people who we have a Carolyn. She's one of our writers. She is a PhD student for positive psychology, and we bring up positive psychology in our mission. So she was perfect. And we have a librarian who works full time, and they're like the outreach coordinator. So it's like we have people from very diverse backgrounds, which is a lot of fun.
No, and I think that's something that you could speak to business owners on, as you're an example for that in how to reach out to these different generations. Like you had just said, 4 hours and you're on and you're available, and people can pop in and out, just checking up on them, and then using technology to keep track of tasks and stuff like that. There's so many old school mentalities where it's the 9 to 5 job, and there's this micromanaging. And I know especially your generation is not about that. And then asking, I think what you just said, asking what they're passionate about, and then giving freedom to allow them to go into that direction. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and we definitely want them to be passionate about the project they're working on because it's definitely going to speak to it. We even have an intern who he actually does his own documentaries, like very short documentaries. So I was like, wow, if you could do a documentary on positivity, that would be amazing. And so we'll see if that follows through. If it doesn't, it's still a great idea and we could pursue it later. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. And some things come, some things go. But it's like I love hearing the ideas, creative forces going through people and the juices. All that stuff I think is very interesting. I just love people to consider it. And it's like sometimes when you go on an internship or a job, it's like, okay, what do you want me to do? And I'll do it. But then sometimes it's actually even harder when someone says, no, what do you want to do? Like it's
Mhm.
sometimes it's weird. Like you have to you feel somewhat empowered. It's like, oh, what do I want to work on? Oh, I don't know. Usually I'm used to just people telling me what to do. So I think there's like when it comes to the liberation, it takes some time to get used to as well because you're not really used to that. And so like if I were an internship where you have to be a self starter and you have to try different things, I think that can be hard. I think it makes you a way better leader and employer, when you apply for jobs in the future.
Yeah, no, I 100%. So Zane, I kind of want to, we're almost on an hour here. So I want to make sure that, everyone follows your magazine and they subscribe to your podcast. Will you give me like do you guys have a website, Instagram, your podcast name so everybody can subscribe and listen?
Yes. Um, so so the Instagram handle. Well, let me start with the website actually, because the website has everything. So you can definitely see everything there if you go there. So it's just Positive Vibes Mag, not magazine, just mag. When we first made it, that was it. It was Positive Vibes Mag. We've kind of embracing the actual magazine in the title, but a lot of our handles is that. So Positive Vibes Mag on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and go on LinkedIn. That's where we post our content. We don't post anything else there. Like, we don't post like the cutesy stuff like Instagram and all the spiritual stuff. We just post our content on LinkedIn because it's the professional stuff. Even when it comes to YouTube, we just post the videos of the podcast because we do Zoom and so we have videos and it's really interesting when we have videos. Some don't want videos and we're respectful of that. And so the podcast itself is called The World of Positivists. We thought of that because of positive advocates. It's a new movement. And
Right.
so we're on Anchor, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple. And I love how Anchor just adds you to a bunch. So we're on a bunch and Anchor just added us to them, which is great. But I don't really remember those, but those are the main ones we're on. And we also post the podcast on the website. So everything's on the website. So if you want just a central place, the website's your best bet.
So it's positivevibesmag.com.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, Zane, this has really been an amazing episode. I appreciate your creativity. I appreciate your thinking out of the box and bringing these issues to the forefront. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you or they want to follow you personally, how would they do that?
Oh yeah. So like my personal Instagram is my name, Zane Landin, and my email is zdlandin, because my middle name's David, so zdlandin at cpp.edu. That's my school account and that's where all my professional stuff goes. So yeah, if you want to be interviewed for Positive Vibes Magazine, reach out to me. We'll make it happen. Or if you just want to talk about professionalism, PR, whatever it is that you want to talk about, let's do it.
Well, perfect. Well, thanks, Zane. I appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Jason, for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us on the Albuquerque Business Podcast. And thanks to our sponsor, RigbyDigital.com. Make sure to subscribe and share. And go to abqpodcast.com. Get show notes, resources, and links to everything we talked about today to help you navigate your journey as an entrepreneur and business owner.